We're continuing on Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim with Mishna Berurah, doing the halachot of Birkat HaShachar, officially still on Siman, Nun Hey, discussing Dvarim Shebikdusha. Maran writes, Im hitchil be'avot v'yatzu miktzatan, gomer afilu kedusha. If you started the bracha of avot, and then you lost the minyan, in other words, the Shaliach Tzibur started the repetition of Shemona Esrei while still having the minyan of 10, and then you lost some of the people, you still have 6, you still have Rov minyan, the majority of minyan is still there. Says the Shulchan Aruch, Gomer afilu kedusha. You could even say the kedusha. Now, the Mishna Berurah writes, afilu kedusha, vehu adid de gomer hashaliach tzibur kol tefilat Shemona Esrei. It's not just kedusha, but you could continue and finish the entire Shemona Esrei, because kedusha is part and parcel of the tefillah of Shemona Esrei, and therefore you could complete the entirety of the tefillah of Chazarat Hashatz in its entirety. The only reason that it says kedusha is for us not to think that you're finishing Chazarat Hashatz, but you're skipping the kedusha. In other words, we already discussed before that you're going to be skipping Birkat Kohanim, right? Even if you have Kohanim in the house, you're not going to be having a duchen in Chazarat Hashatz, because Birkat Kohanim, Nesiyat Kapayim, is a separate inyan, even though that's instituted to be within Chazarat Shaliach Tzibur. So lest you're going to think that kedusha also is something else, Naktishach is also considered something else, and you don't say Naktishach, hence the Shulchan Aruch has to say that you do say Naktishach, as the Rashba mentions this in the Tshuva, in Chelek Aleph of his Tshuvot in Siman Tzadi Hey, I believe. Therefore, Maran mentions it in that order. Now, even though that Maran later on in Hilchot Tfilah in Siman Kuf Chaf Daled is going to paskin that if you don't have 9 people who are not mechaben and answering amen to the Chazarat Hashas, if you have people who are there, you have minyan, but there aren't 9 people who are answering amen to the brachot of Shaliach Tzibur, Maran writes, Hareze karov liot birchotav bracha lebatala. This Shaliach Tzibur, his brachot that is making 19 brachot, is almost as if he's saying bracha lebatala, because people are not answering amen to his brachot. So how is it that you have 6 people who's saying all this brachot in Chazarat Hashatz? Of course you don't have 9 people to answer amen, because you don't have 9 people, period. You have only 6 people. So 5 people aside from Shaliach Tzibur you have over here. Kaf Chaim explains that because you started the Chazarat Hashatz with 10 answering in the heter, it was mutar for you to start it, and there is no other possibility for you to finish this. The only way you can finish it, once you start it, you have to finish it. And there's no other way to finish it but to do with what you have got, which is Rov Minyan of people. You don't have 10 there. So then you're allowed to finish it and to continue completing the Chazarat Shaliach Tzibur that you started. Now, the Shuvot of Chacham Obadiah, he also brings this question up, this apparent stira, apparent contradiction. And Chacham Obadiah writes that the brachot of the Shaliach Tzibur in Siman Kuf Chaf Dalet later on is not really bracha lebatala. Maran says this is like a bracha lebatala. It's not really bracha lebatala, because Chazal instituted that as soon as you have minyan in the shul, you could say Chazarat Shaliach Tzibur. Even if no one answers, you still are doing the right thing. But Maran is emphasizing how bad it is when you have people there and they're not answering amen. And therefore, if you have a halachic exception that in a scenario that you started with a minyan and then people left, that you could complete it, so then it's mutar. It's mutar. Of course, this is not a lechatchila situation, but it's rather a b'diavad situation, but it's something that you could do. Now, says,
What if you only do Amidah once? Altogether.
well, there's no question there. I mean, you could only start it when you have 10, but if you lost some of the people when they davened and finished their Shemona Esrei, for instance, they left, fine, so then you can't do other Dvarim Shebik Dusha necessarily, but you have done Tefillah b'minyan. So says the Mishna Berurah. Now the Rama adds over here. If you lost the minyan after you said Baruchu and you started saying Yotzer, the Berkut Kriyat Shema, so you lost in minyan already there. Lo yatchila shaliach tzibur leitpalel tefillah b'kol rab. Then you daven Shemona Esrei and you won't have chazarat shaliach tzibur because you didn't have a minyan. The kvar nishlam tefillah Yotzer, because already the Berkut Kriyat Shema has finished. And you can't start a new thing without having a minyan at the start point. But if they left after you started Chazarat Shaliach Tzibur and Kedusha, יכולים להשלים כל סדר קדושה ולומר הקדיש שלם שלאחריה. Then not only you could finish Kedusha and you could finish the Chazarat HaShas, but you could also say the Kaddish afterwards, which is Shayach the Tefillah, the Kaddish, the Chatzi Kaddish, and even Kaddish Titkabal afterwards. That's Shayach to the Tefillah. Sha'arei Omer Titkabal Selot Hahon is going back on the Selot Hahon, which is the Tefillah of Shemona Esrei. So it's directly connected and it's instituted on the Tefillah. So since you had the Tefillah with the Minyan, you could start saying the Kaddish, even though that you don't have a Minyan, you only have 7 people left, you can still say Kaddish Titkabal in its entirety without having a minyan. Once you could, you should. Aval, but at the same time says the Rama and Korin Batorah. Of course, you cannot bring out the Torah because that's already a new topic. That's not connected with the Tefillah. That's a new Devarim Shebik. Tushad zo inyan acher. It's a different thing. Utfilat Arvit v'Kadish la'acharav lo shayach. The Kriyat Shema ubirchotea, and by Arvit, Tefillah and Kriyat Shema are 2 separate things. So if you had Minyan, you said Kaddish, you said Baruchu, you said Shema, and then people left, you didn't start the Tefillah of Shemona Esrei with a Minyan, then you cannot say Kaddish after the Tefillah of Shemona Esrei because it's nothing to do with the Shema and the Baruchu that you said prior. So says the Rama. Now the Mishna Berurah writes, לאחר שהתחילו, נקט חי להשתדף, ממהרש שהובא בדרכי משה, שרוצה להקל בזה. This that the Rama writes, לאחר שהתחילו, in other words, the language is, והם יצאו מקצתה לאחר שהתחילו להתפלל יוצר, says the Rama, the reason that he says, לאחר שהתחילו, is because there is the Maharash that wants to be lenient that you could even continue even if you didn't start Yotzer and you just had the Kaddish with Minyan, אבל באמת לפי הסכמת הפוסקים הוא אפילו אם התפילה ולחש היה גם כן בעשרה, דינא הוא שלא יתחיל השליח ציבור בקול רם בפחות מעשרה. So here Mishna Berurah says something which is a big chidush, right? Says the Mishna Berurah, the halacha is lefi askamat haposkim, the afilu im atfilah b'lachash haya b'asara. You had a minyan davening the quiet Shemona Esrei, but then you missed the minyan. Now, do you say that Chazarat HaShas is the continuation of tefillah b'lachash, and therefore I should be able to say my Chazarat Shaliach Tzibur, even though that at start point of Chazarat HaShas, I don't have a minyan, just because I had a minyan when quiet davening was happening? Or do you say, well, the repetition of Shemona Esrei is a new thing. So if by the beginning point of the repetition you don't have a minyan, you won't do the repetition altogether. So says the Mishna Berurah, afilu im hatfilah belachash haya gam ken b'asara. Even if you had minyan by lachash, writes the Pri Megadim, din ahu shelo yatchil shaliach tzibur b'kol ram b'pachod ma'asara. Shaliach tzibur should not start the Chazarat Hashas if you don't have a minyan. Says the Mishna Berurah, Leitpalel Yoser, the next part of the Rema that says that if you started the bracha of Kriyat Shema, Yotzer HaMeorot, you started that after you started it, then the minyan left. That the Shaliach Tzibur should not start the tefillah of Shemona Esrei of Chazarat Shaliach Tzibur. Says the Mishna Berurah, Ayem b'achronim she'iskimu da'afilu lo amru rak Kaddish u'Baruchu ba'asara. If you did not say only Kaddish and Baruchu with Asara, you had minyan, you said Kaddish, you said Baruchu et Hashem HaMevorach, and then people left. So that's all you had minyan for. You could still יצאו מקצתם קודם שהתחילו כלל ברכת יוצר, מקרה כמו שהתחילו כבר בעשרה. That's already considered that you started ברכת קריאת שמע בעשרה. The Baruchu is already the beginning of ברכות קריאת שמע. So even though that you didn't start ברוך אתה השם אלוקינו מלך העולם יוצר אור, and you lost the minyan already before that, you could still continue and you could say the bרכות קריאת שמע and say the kadosh kadosh kadosh. All of those is fine to say. Until Shemona Esrei, you could say the functions of tzibur, and you could be yotze with the shaliach tzibur, afilu b'pachot ma'asara, even in less than a minyan. Now, kedusha
is it different from Arvit?
Arvit is the same thing.
In the Ramasa of Arvit.
No, the kedusha afterwards. Ma says if you had, just because you had by Baruchu, doesn't mean that you could say Kaddish after Tefillah. Because there are two separate things. As Tefillah, the Kaddish is instituted on the Tefillah. By Tefillah, you didn't already have minyan. You could only say the Kaddish after Tefillah at Kabal if by Shemona Esrei you had minyan. Right? So the next part is that the Rama said, ואם יצאו לאחר שהתחיל בקול רם, וקדושה יכולים להשלים כל סדר קדושה ולומר הקדיש שלם שלאחריה. So says the Mishna Berurah לאו דווקא. דאפילו עדיין לא אמרו קדושה. Even if you haven't said קדוש קדוש yet, even if you haven't said קדושה yet, כיוון שהתחילו להתפלל בקול רם, once you start the beginning of the repetition of שמונה עשרה, שלח ציבור starts חזרת הש"ס, and immediately people leave, even though that you haven't said Hakel HaKadosh, you haven't said the Kedusha yet, you could continue, finish, say Kedusha, say the rest of Shemona Esrei out loud, and say even the Kaddish, Chatzi Kaddish, and Kaddish Kabbalah afterwards. All of that is fine. No, we said before that the minimum is Rov Minyan. You at least have to have majority of Minyan, which is 6 people. Right? Kaddish Shalem, v'chol shkera Chatzi Kaddish. When you say, you could say Kaddish Kabbalah, means of course you could also say Chatzi Kaddish immediately after Chazarat Shaliach Tzibur, and that goes without saying. Now Kaf HaChaim says that we don't say the Kaddish after Tefillah. That's a Kaf HaChaim paskins, because from Maran Shulchan Aruch you see that it's a different inyan, the Kaddish after Tefillah, than it is the Tefillah itself. And Chacham Obadiah also paskins like that. In other words, if you have a number of people that's leaving before Kaddish is said, of course those people, they're not doing the right thing, they're breaking the minyan. We spoke about that already. But if they leave, Chacham Obadiah, Kaf HaChaim, they're a little bit more mahmir, that the Kaddish after Tefillah is not part and parcel of the Tefillah itself. Hence, you can't say the Kaddish after Tefillah just because by the beginning of Chazarat HaShas you had a minyan. Okay, so it says this is, in Chacham said this about the Kaddish of the Slichot, but it's really the same thing applies by Tefillah as well. Now, it comes out that according to Marash Charuch, the Kaddish that's said after Tefillah, it's not a part and parcel, it's not chelik of the Tefillah. And therefore, it is considered a different topic from the topic of Tefillah. And because of that, if you are pushed, if push comes to shove, if a person is not Shaliach Tzibur in Tefillah, you could say Kaddish Kabbalah as well. In other words, it goes together. If the can somebody else say Tit Kabbalah? Let's say the Shaliach Tzibur was putting on Tefillin Mishna Berurah or had to use the facilities. He went out. Can someone else say Tit Kabbalah? He says yes, because not part of Mamash, part of Tefillah. So it's L'chatchila that the Shaliach Tzibur who said Chazarat Shaliach Tzibur should say Kaddish Tit Kabbalah. But really, anyone that was there in part of the Tefillah could say it as well. B'ezrat Hashem, we'll continue this in the days to come.